Hey everyone! Thanks for checking out the first episode of Brunch with Strangers. I'm your host, Joan Hurwit. I'm spending this next year traveling the United States for an independent research project on the arts, and I thought this would be a fun series to start since I'm meeting some incredible people on the road. You can find out more about the project at www.polkadotsandpicometers.com. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Ella Barton, a spoken word poet currently living in Seattle, Washington. I hope you enjoy the show.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is our first, I'm calling it Breakfast with Strangers.
Okay.
Or Brunch. That's what it is.
Brunch with Strangers.
Brunch with Strangers.
Okay.
So Ella and I met last night.
Yes.
And we met at the art salon, which was
the Crosscut Art Salon, which is a magazine, an online magazine.
For Seattle.
For Seattle, yeah.
And it's pretty new, right?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. And Ella was the only performance last night.
Yes.
For being an art salon, which I thought was interesting. Really appreciated the live performance. Otherwise, it was just people talking about art, which was fine.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Cool. Okay, so tell us where we are.
We're at Little John Restaurant in Bellevue. It's kind of a diner, greasy spoon. I was trying to find something that was low cost, but and then between Issaquah and here and Seattle, sort of.
For me,
yeah,
I was in Issaquah.
Yeah, because you're in Issaquah.
Thank you. Cool. Okay, so you're from LA.
Yeah.
Okay, that is so wild. You're like the first person that I'm like, I feel like home. You know what I mean? It's so funny.
Right.
And it might be weird for me to say that, but like, no, it's kind of like you said last night, where it's like the text message came through.
It was so good to see it. Yeah. It's so good to see that.
I'm good if you are.
I'm okay. You should go.
I think I'm gonna grab the half order of French toast.
Okay.
That's right.
You're all good with that? I'm gonna have the chicken fried steak over medium.
Fried choice of toast with that.
White toast.
White toast.
Thank you.
And I'll grab some orange juice, please.
Orange juice, you got it?
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay. I've been talking about doing this podcast because I've kind of had like really great conversations with people over brunch, and I'm like, I should have just recorded that whole thing. But that sort of sounds like a creepy thing to do if it's not like an established thing. So when I saw you last night, I was like, oh my god, wouldn't it be so cool to start with Ella? Because your performance piece was incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
And as soon as they were like, someone's performing, I like whipped out my phone and I was like, I am going to video this whole thing, and I'm so glad I did. I don't think I can ask you to perform it here.
I probably won't.
Probably a good call.
Probably a good call, yeah.
But yeah, I have the recording of last night's performance. And so I come from like an arts background. Theater is my art of choice, but I've done it all, I've taught it all to kids.
Right.
But yeah, so I figured it'd be really cool to like start with the artists. I think it's gonna be rare that I actually get a chance to chat with people that are like artists in the community. So I was like, this is perfect. So the fact that you said yes was awesome. Thank you for saying yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so so we after the show I say in quotation marks last night, we had a bit of a debrief.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what it was like performing last night.
Performing is what I do, right? Like, people ask me to do something, I say yes, I do it. So it wasn't really necessarily the performance.
Do you always say yes?
Not always.
Because I'm notorious for not being able to say no to things. You know what I mean? I have that problem where I'm like, oh my god, everything sounds like such a great
absolutely.
idea.
I don't always say yes. I do. I normally do a lot more research about who the organization is, the person that's inviting me, like that sort of like research that's done. But this time I sort of went with a feeling. I'm actually returning, like, so I was originally supposed to be moving to Northern California not very long ago, and that plan changed. And so, like, it's been this constant battle of, like, what is it like to, like, change your life, to go into transition, to move states, and then not happen, right?
That happened to me 5 years ago.
Yeah, so it's like this, like, okay, so I go back to work, I go back
Did you
to...
already, like, put in your notice?
Yeah, like, I had a farewell show with the Poetry Slam.
You were
I was just ready to go. Like, I had the date planned. Like, I was ready, and I was like, all of my stuff was packed. I was ready to take everything from the public storage and go. Like, I was supposed to have left 2 weeks ago. And so, like, it's been this constant battle of, like, being embarrassed that I haven't gone, and you know, like, your community is like, okay, why are you still here, sort of thing, you know? You know, we cried about it, like, we're done, so, like, why aren't you gone, you know? So, like, said goodbye. Right, we said goodbye, what's going on? So it's been this weird, like, should I do more shows? Should I take a break? Should I, you know, like, so when I got that message from Alyssa, I was like, why not? It's something new, it's something different. I haven't been doing these kind of things for a while, so let me jump back on. And so I said yes.
And so Alyssa had seen you
Alyssa had come to
in the slam poetry.
Yeah, Alyssa had come to the Poetry Slam that's every Tuesday at Rebar in Seattle.
Cool.
Had seen me do that poem, and so, you know, invited me to do that poem, which happens often, where it's like, I saw that poem, this poem matches this theme, please do that poem, right?
How funny.
Yeah, so that happens a lot. So I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely, why not? And also that poem, like, means that much to me. Yeah. Because I want that story to be told over and over and over again, just like...
well, because I feel like we don't often hear that voice.
No, not at all.
Like, that first-hand experience.
Right. And like, the interesting thing about that poem to me is that, like, oftentimes we talk about gentrification, but we talk about the bigwigs and what they're doing and how evil it is, and that's real. Absolutely. They are all evil, yes. I have no problem saying that. But I think that, like, coming to the point of, like, the folks that are confused about what's happening, and this is the place you put us, why are you moving us away? I don't understand. And how it slowly leaks in. It's like, oh, well, now they have awesome transit coming through here. That's great for us. But how come the prices are changing? How come I can't afford it? You know, like that story of it, where it's all of a sudden things are changing and it doesn't match anything that's going on in your life. So I think that's the interesting thing. I was able to do that poem for the Pride flag raising for the mayor's office, which was really exciting to me, because I was just like, okay, here's the big guy. You're gonna listen to this.
Yeah.
And, you know, blank faces throughout, did not understand what was happening. You know, there was a couple of people that were snapping and, like, clapping and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, so y'all are with me, y'all are real poor people like me, but there was also very blank faces happening from the folks in, you know, in the suits and stuff.
So do you think that they got it? Do you think they heard you?
I think they heard,
or was it more like, oh my god, what a nice piece of art, rather than slice of life, which is like what this art is mirroring.
Right. I think that, honestly, they didn't actually, like, you know, they say you don't see me. I don't think they saw it, to be honest. And I think that happens often because we don't have the education for folks that think they know everything, right? Like, just like, for instance, like I was talking to you last night about the woman that came over to me. There are so many things that I could have said, but I wasn't given enough time to think and actually say it, and because my emotions were just so, like, riled in, like, her being against me, and, like, I'm the person that is probably displacing you. Yes, you are. You know, and then to continue on about, you know, well, I don't appreciate, you said that, you know, it's so quiet here lately, and, you know, like, and the gunshots and stuff, and I was like, well, that's my people protecting themselves. That's not actually what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say was, violence is created from the environment in which you put us in. People like your folks put us in. And so violence is created from not having access to food, not having access to affordable housing, not having, what we need to survive. So we take on our own ways, and that oftentimes looks like violence. And so,
especially to you.
right, especially to you. So like it looks like a gang house to you,
right?
But these are folks trying to survive in the environment in which they're put,
you
right?
took the words right out of my mouth.
And so, for her to say, and like, so I'm sitting there, seething at this comment that's being told to me that I don't have the like natural ability to just be like, okay, so let's have a history lesson on redlining and like all these things. So that,
and honestly, when your emotions are like so wrapped up,
yeah,
and someone attacks you out of nowhere, it's really hard to respond with like,
let me be pleasant with you. Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, if that had happened to me, I probably would have just stood there and been like,
chicken fried steak.
Yes, that's me. That was so fast. Thank you.
And the half the French toast. There you go. And is there anything else we can get for you?
I'm okay.
I'm good.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. I seriously would have just stood there and been like, are you for real right now? Like, is this really after what you just did?
After what we just listened to.
The whole night.
The whole night,
people explaining how arts are displaced.
Right.
Like how actual arts are displaced from the setting of the city that you're in.
Right.
Like, how dare you?
And I mean, another part of it is that, like, we did hear about, like, some of the speakers were not actually what I thought was going to happen, because there was a lot of talk about like, the streetwalkers and the homeless folks, and I'm like, okay, but streetwalkers and homeless folks, and pardon me, not streetwalkers, sex workers and houseless folks, like, are also artists a lot of the time,
and still doing what they can to survive.
Right.
And this is still your community.
Right.
Understand that, like, this is not a disposable part of your city.
Right.
Which is how
and it's not always going to bring, and it's not always going to bring you income. It's not always going to bring you, the guy from Seattle Office of Arts and Culture was talking about, like, we put in this new art space, and then the houseless guy that was outside, moved along or whatever, and it was like, okay, but did he move along, or did your organization call the cops and put him in a situation that wasn't didn't allow him to be there? You know what I mean? Like, that was actually his home that he knew.
So you redefined this space, and excluded him from it.
Correct. Like that, and that's what was interesting to me. Where I was just like, okay, but and as a brown person, and as as a queer person, like I strongly, like, a lot of my community are sex workers that are also artists. This is how they pay their bills. Like, so like I don't understand why we're excluding that from the entire equation.
And I don't understand sometimes how that's so hard to see. Like, I understand that people are going to have their opinions on it, but the fact that they refuse to see how this is working is very frustrating to me, because you're taking away these people's humanity.
Right.
And you're discounting them, and you're disvaluing them.
Right.
And that's really shitty.
Yeah. And there's a woman there too that was that said something about like, we can do it for ourselves, and if people would just stop moaning and groaning and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, but you are, I'm assuming visibly you are a heterosexual white woman, cisgendered heterosexual white woman, right? And you talked about receiving all of these accolades, and you hit the ground running, and you got to go to San Francisco and all of these things. But what about the same person that's queer or brown, or trans and brown, or whatever, and wasn't able to attain all of those accolades and awards and whatever it was, or even go to college? Let's talk about that part. You went to University of Washington, and for instance, on my end, if we were to put each other next to each other,
grad school, right? Okay, so you have your secondary degree.
Right. So, like, if we put each other next to her, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in North Hollywood. Like, I went to community college. I then went to vocational school. I then went to the military. Like, these were what I had access to. I tried everything I could. And then she went to university, probably, I'm going to assume, out of high school, then went to grad school, and you, quote unquote, hit the ground running and went on with your art career.
She was offered free housing.
She was offered free housing from a company large company.
From that building that we were in.
Right.
In exchange for her art.
Right.
And curating spaces with art.
Right, and these are folks that like receive money for their art and like.
Which is big anyway.
Huge, right? And you know, there's folks talking about like, oh well, these pieces are $100 each. I sell my chapbook for $5 a piece.
I owe you $5. No. You gave it to me last
That's for
night.
my contact information. And
So
and they double as my business card. You know what I mean? Like so like there's a strong difference and there's a large scale when you say art community. Like let's talk about the art community. There's folks on one end, and here's the thing. Like I'm not saying that I'm the lowest of the low, but I'm down there. A lot of these art spaces that are quote unquote affordable are not affordable to me.
Actually,
yeah, like I get $50 for a stipend to do a show.
Their definition of affordable is very different
From mine, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I meant to start with that because I so appreciated the way you introduced yourself last night. So can we just take a moment and like,
Yeah.
that was the fucking coolest thing. It was like so brave, but it was so honest. It was like, what did you say? You were like,
I was like, hey, I'm Ella Barton. I'm a spoken word poet. I'm a real poor person. It's nice to meet you.
right. And you were like, this is my name. This is what I do. This is my art. And I'm a real poor person. It's nice to meet all of you. And I was like, oh snap.
And it's also funny to think about the poorest, like, there was also the houseless quote that we heard was not even present in the room.
No, he was there.
Oh, he was there?
Okay, so I spoke with him at the first intermission because that's how I heard about the event last night.
Oh, okay.
I went to Path with Art yesterday.
Right.
Hoping that they would have a chance to chat with me. Executive director granted me a half-hour interview, which was incredible. I got to learn all about what they do and all the different people that they serve with their art. They offer workshops, they offer like access art, so like admission to museums and the symphony and like all these wonderful venues, sort of things. And then they offer like opportunities for people to sort of engage in the community of art. So they have a choir and so it's great. So they were telling me that one of their students had an art piece at the show tonight. Did I want to go? Of course, I was like, yes,
Absolutely, yeah.
So I got there. I saw your art all
Draped around. Yeah, that was really cool.
Did you do that exactly?
I didn't do that.
You know it was going to be there?
Yeah, Elisa told me she was going to do it. I didn't realize it was going to be that massive.
I'm glad that it took up space, and that's important.
Right.
Like the
You had to read
metaphor
it.
of what that was.
Yeah.
It was like amazing to hear those words and come from you. Like I'm glad that obviously you're performing your own work, and it wasn't like the homeless statement where it was like Alyssa reading it.
Right.
You know what
That's
I mean?
why I assumed that he wasn't there. That's
why I was so confused. I was like, wait a second, he's here. All of these other people are having an opportunity to speak. Why are we not hearing from him directly?
Right. That's the interesting thing to me too is that there was a interesting so I didn't even know that the man was in the room. The houseless man was not in. I thought he was not in the room. Then, as like the second poor person, I was told to perform my poem. I was not told to speak. I was told to perform my poem, and it wasn't like it wasn't like aggressive and was like just perform your poem. But that's what I was asked to do, so that's what I did. Right.
Well, the way it sounds like is like, here's what we have time for.
Right.
And we're going to allot you this much time and space to exist. And then other than that,
Right.
go, whatever.
Which I thought was interesting.
And
on
everyone
them.
had at least 10 minutes to speak.
Right. And so I felt like that's an interesting way of looking at the arts community too, where it's like literally the voiceless to those who get all the time in the world to really talk about stop moaning and groaning about all of these privileges I have.
Spoke was white.
Right. And that was I was very uncomfortable when I first got there. I kind of sat in my corner and I was like, let me count the brown people.
I saw you sitting there. I didn't know anyone, and honestly, I was just trying. Excuse me, as I choke on French toast.
No, you're all good.
I was just trying to absorb the space, but so much of me wanted to come over and chat with you. But you were on your phone because you were like,
I'm not. Yeah. I was like, let me count the brown people. Oh, there are none. I'll go back on my phone.
Oh my god, I did that once in a theater in Washington, D.C. No joke, quick anecdote.
Yeah.
I was at a theater, and they do this what's supposed to be amazing revolutionary work. The play itself was incredible. the play was called China America, and it was about Tiananmen Square, and it was about the Tank Man. And I've been to Beijing and I've been to Tiananmen Square, so that resonated with me.
Right.
Half of the cast was Asian, probably Chinese. Real people, like in the right parts.
Right.
And sitting in the audience of probably a 175 seat theater, I was furious at how many white people there were.
Yeah.
And I literally stood at the front of the house and I counted at intermission, which sounds horrible, but it's kind of like the game you were playing last night, which is like, how many brown people are there? Last night it was like, how many people are not white?
Right.
8 people, maybe 6.
Wow.
6 people in a 175 seat audience.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable to me. I don't like that is even a thing.
Yeah, like I feel like that's also a level of like, because like oftentimes with art salons and like events and things like that, you're inviting the people you know to show up, and so there was obviously like, and this is not to like discount anything that happened last night, but like reach out to actual people.
What I found so inaccessible, in addition to the audience, which is like everyone that came last night, great. I'm glad that you were there to have that discussion. I'm not sure that discussion continued. I hope that it did.
Right.
But please expand the audience to people that need to be heard.
Yeah.
That are underrepresented voices. Right. And that was the thing. I was like, I couldn't, for a while there, I was so very confused as to why we were in that space, in such a new building. And it wasn't until the closing remark that they sort of said, oh, it's ironic that we're here. We were invited to be here. We were hesitant about being here. It's so ironic
That we're in this building.
that we're in this space, because 2 years ago we would have been standing in midair.
Right.
For me, it was still.
Yeah. Like I
would have rather visiting Seattle. I would have rather have been just about anywhere else. I think. You know what I mean?
And you know, like the
Let
funny
me
thing
see
is
the city that you're talking about losing.
The funny thing is that they kept talking about like, oh, we were gonna be downstairs, and I was like, downstairs is just as like frou-frou, if that's a good word. Just as frou-frou as the upstairs, and so like I don't know, like it just felt like, and it was very like secured, in which like I had to check in at the table and make sure that I belong there, and here's my badge, and go up the elevator and follow the signs, and don't go outside of where we're pointing you to go, and so there was that aspect of it too. And then to do that poem in a condo, like in the high-rise condo, in such a fancy space, like I was like blown away. Like I was like, don't touch anything, Alex. You can't pay for it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the way it really, honestly felt that way. Like I was really like, I'm not sure.
Uninviting.
Yeah, like like everybody, mostly everyone was, super welcoming and super nice, and wanted to, know more about what I do and where, like all of that stuff. But like at the same time, like I was just like, I counted 2 black women in the room that made me feel a little bit safer. Unfortunately, they were related to each other. Like, and so like there was, and then maybe like 2 others, and so like I was just kind of like, okay, the whole story is not being told here, so I don't know. Affordable housing, in my opinion, affects a lot more like brown people than they do white people, like regardless of their like artist titles. There was that video of the guy, I'm in the middle of South Lake Union and doing doing this, large scale projects and stuff, and I was like, well, large scale projects require a lot of funding, and so folks like me, like sculpting is not a thing that I would have ever gone into. Like ever in a million years, I would have never, like, sure, painting, that's a thing, because I can, or charcoal or whatever, like I have I can get all of those things, or like even then, like my mom was like, you want to paint? That's, what kind of paint do you want? It really, like that kind of thing. Yeah, and so like writing, you can get a pen anywhere. You can write on a napkin for that, so like honestly, like I feel like my art form called to me based on what I had access to. So
How do you feel about that?
I feel good about it.
Okay. That's where you want to be.
Well, yeah, I
live in that.
Yeah, like I've spent so much time writing, as a kid, as on a Navy ship, on like wherever, that I just feel like this is mine to own. This is where I'm supposed to be. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I think nights like last night presented a very narrow definition of art, which I have a problem with, because when I taught second grade in Richmond in Pacoima.
Oh wow!
I went to middle school in Pacoima.
Right.
And
where did you go to middle school?
At Pacoima Middle School, but I was in the Performing Arts Magnet.
Oh, okay. I went to Bird. Is that still there? Richard E. Bird Middle School.
Oh, I have no idea.
I guess it's considered Sun Valley.
Oh, okay. A little further.
Yeah.
That was funny. But so here I was in Pacoima, which is a notoriously low income community. A lot of Mexican families.
A lot of Mexican families. There's actually projects in Pacoima.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and the year before that I started teaching there, I had a friend that was already an art teacher there, and she was like Facebook status updating about like violence or a shooting or someone's body was found and whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's like that was the environment that I was teaching in. So when I went in, the first day I sat down with these kids, we talked about art with a capital A and everything that means. So I even have this like tattoo that's for art we live. It's a capital A. So I've always had this mentality that like art is not one thing. It is this umbrella and can mean so many wonderful different things. So at like with little kids, we like did the whole map on the board. We figured out all these different art forms, and it was great because it sort of showed them like you don't need a paintbrush. You don't need fancy dance shoes.
Or training.
Yeah. These are the kids that don't have after school enrichment, and that's why I wanted to be there. But last night it was sort of presented in such a way that it was like, it felt like fine art. Twice, I think, theaters were mentioned, and yours was the only art that was a performance.
Right.
And a lot of the art and art space that they talked about last night was very much with like, we need a space to create and show this art that we're making, and it's like, no, wait, this can mean so many other things.
Right.
But last night was very interesting.
Very, very interesting.
I cannot believe that woman was so offended by what you dared share that she called you out.
Yeah, she really needed to talk to me too. Like she really pulled me aside and wanted me talking about it.
Whoa.
So I've been doing some, not a lot, and I wish that I could do more, but like I've been doing some reading on white fragility. and like often,
this is very brave of you. I want to hear more about this.
And often the reaction when someone tells them that they are part of the issue or that their privilege is probably part of this issue is that they either they try to defend it, which is something she did.
Like they get defensive.
They get very defensive, and they defend the idea of it where like she said, she's like, I live in the CD, and I might be one of those people that displaced you, aren't I? Like, so there was that very like,
what did she want you to say?
And
yes, you are.
And that was I was like, yeah, you probably are. And I was like, but honestly, I was like, but I think the larger issue.
You didn't come across like angry and
yeah, I was just presenting the facts. Like, this is what happens.
And even like within the poem itself, like you were like one of the first words or phrases is like, the fuck is that?
Right.
Like it comes across with a very like, I don't understand.
Right.
Someone explain this to me.
Yeah.
Not bash.
Yeah, like let's all like burn them. Let's burn them all down. Like it's not at all. And that's never that never has been my like way of being. Like I'm not burn it all down, but like let's take a look. That's all I want you to do is like let's take a look at what's happening. And so like her first reaction was very like, well, sarcastic and defensive, and so she was like, oh, well, I must be, and I was like, yeah, you are, but if we look at the bigger picture, that area was marketed to you that way,
Right.
and I was like, so there was a problem already, right? And then so
you were almost alleviating her of responsibility,
right? And so there's so there's the defense right there, and then the other one is anger. So then, because I didn't react the way she needed me to, and because I was still defending what I had to say, she then went on to, well, one thing that really bothered me about your poem was when you talked about the quiet, and she was like, and I actually happen to love the quiet because before that was gunshots and blah blah blah, and so like, and I was like,
is she implying that she was there for the gunshots?
yeah, she is implying that she was there for the gunshots, and
if
that
she moved in
right
afterward,
if she's the one who displaced me, then maybe not. So she was like, well, and I don't deal well with guns, and I don't think guns are correct in any way, and blah blah blah. So I didn't have time to explain to her, like I told you, about the environments in which you put us in, blah blah blah, whatever. So I didn't have that time to say that, but she got angry, and then
it's almost as if she was implying that you were like pro-gun,
right,
pro-gun
like,
violence.
let's kill everybody, right? Like, no, absolutely not.
You don't want that either.
Right. And so I didn't have time to explain. I was also seething because of the way she came up to me. And then instead of waiting for my reply or having an open conversation with me, she then left the situation. So in that one, what is it, 35-second conversation, she displayed all of those like steps of white fragility, where it was like, I'm angry, I'm defensive, and then I'm going to leave the situation without waiting for, you know what I mean? So I was just like, okay, well, that's what we're doing.
She followed the entire prescription. White fragility.
Yeah, like, so I was just like, and mind you,
like honestly, this is coming from a white person, but like she makes us look so bad.
Right. And so like that was the interesting thing to me. And like, mind you, I haven't read a lot about it, so there could be more that she just didn't get to or whatever. But like from what I've read, those are three like strong points in which you don't want to hear it because that then makes you part of the problem.
God, I am so like I would like to apologize on behalf of all of these like closed-minded, bigoted white people. But we're not all that bad, I swear.
And like
Jesus.
yeah, so it was just really interesting to me that it would just happen that way. And I was like, you didn't want to hear anything I had to say. You didn't even wait for me to say words. Like, so you just up and left because you didn't want to hear that, like, because you may have to give up part of your privilege or recognize it.
Just identify it.
Like, that upsets you.
That is so frustrating to me. Just acknowledge your white privilege.
Right.
Then we can have a thoughtful conversation.
Right.
Like,
it has nothing to do with you specifically.
It's not personal.
Yeah,
she took it personal.
Oh yeah, absolutely, she took it personal because she lives in the CD. My goodness, like
her CD.
Yeah, her CD.
Her neighborhood.
Lower Capitol Hill, as they're now calling it. I don't understand, but but yeah, like here's the thing: is the Central District is a historically black neighborhood in Seattle, and for them to change the name to Lower Capitol Hill proves what they're doing.
That's really.
Yeah, well, the mayor is trying to change it to that. Nobody, I don't know who. Everybody I hang out with doesn't want that. But to change it to Lower Capitol Hill proves, in fact, that they are doing what they were doing, and that they are pushing black folks out of their own community, in which historically that was the only area in which black folks could buy a house, like legally. So like. I don't know.
How does this even come to be?
Right, exactly. Like in years and years and years ago, from what I've read, like there's areas in which banks would not allow people of color to buy houses in certain areas. And actually, a woman last night was talking to me about it. Like one of the like 3 brown folks in the whole room. We were talking for a little bit, and she was like, back in the day, this is I think she said it was in the 70s. She lived in, and I know maybe these neighborhoods mean nothing to you, I don't know.
I'll do my research.
But she lived in Lower Queen Anne. Lower Queen Anne is actually,
yeah, I've been there.
She used to live in Lower Queen Anne in a house, living off of, I think she said she was making $5.68 an hour.
$5.68.
And that's, $5, like, let's be clear, $5.68 an hour.
We're not talking about annual salary.
Right. And so like $5.68 an hour, living in a house for $268 a month, which is unheard of now. Obviously unheard of now, but like back then it's actually still like pretty cheap, on the cheap end, and from what I understand. And she was working part-time and going to Seattle Pacific, and she was like, I was living large. That was me living large back in the day. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, and now if you look at that area, like,
Oh yeah.
it's all Amazon folks, like tech folks that live over there. I think, classmates.com
Went
used
to a
to be
coffee
over
shop the other
there.
day. All white.
Yeah, all white and all very like pretty well off. Like, just the way, you could just look around and you're
Well,
pretty
anyone going in and buying a $5 latte is going to be there because they can afford it.
$5 and some change plus tip. So, like all of that is like, very interesting.
So you were gonna leave Seattle.
Yeah.
Did this have anything to do with it?
Oh yeah, I was getting tired of, like to be absolutely real, I was getting tired of not making it, and I was also getting tired of being in a predominantly white city, and to be honest with you, I was gonna move to Santa Cruz, California, and that's not any better in terms of being predominantly white, but like there are, like from when I visited there, like there were brown folks around. Like I felt okay, and it was also California. Like I'm sort of home in that sense, where it's like at least I'm in the safety of I can exit to LA pretty quickly.
Right. Just keep
stage
driving south.
left. Like let's go. If it doesn't work out. But yeah, like and so like I was gonna move, and like there honestly in the arts community here, as you saw last night, there are a lot of problems with racism and honestly sexism and honestly homophobia and transphobia and like all of these things. And so like I was really trying to find my way out, because I have called it out. I have tried to have discussions within my local community, but they were ignored and or attacked and like Seattle, like you lived in Portland, that passive aggressive is like the way
to roll my eyes,
the state
they
motto,
say polite Portland, and I was like, oh no,
right?
This is passive aggressive.
And they call it the Northwest Nice, right? Like so, it's the regional motto of like the Northwest Nice, and it's not actually nice.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, like it's not actually nice. It's really just frustrating and pretty
it's nice
irritating.
if you're white,
and that's the way you want. And if you want to ignore everything and bury it under the rug and pretend like it never happened, sure. But in my experience, like I'd like to acknowledge it and like try to make moves to move past it. That's not what I've been given. Like I've called out something and I'm then aggressive, and I'm creating problems in the community that don't need to be don't need to be talked about, and I'm giving people what is it? I was told that I was initiating someone's anxiety attack because I called out a problem and I wanted to talk about it, because I didn't have like a formal list of what we were going to talk about. And so like this is the kind of like environment in which which I had to call community. That wasn't about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Community is a big word for me.
Yeah.
So when that doesn't feel good anymore,
no, like
that's really frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now that I'm traveling alone, I don't have many
community. Yeah, you don't have much community
conversations, or all that I have is like my friends online or my phone. It's like I'm relying so much more on technology now. But like these are the conversations that are happening. I'm seeing happening now online. Is that it's like, look at Trump and all of these curious things, and it's like absolutely insane things. And there are so many different views on how to deal with a person like this, right? And so many people are like, well, I'm just gonna unfriend everyone on my friend list that disagrees with me. Because honestly, it gets depressing to know that you know people that can possibly agree with this. I get that. But then there are also people that are like, well, I'm going to actively engage with these people to try to teach them or share my information or have an open conversation about these things. but that gets exhausting.
It gets exhausting.
I'm not actively engaging in any of that right now because I don't have the patience for it. Like, it makes me mad. And it takes time and energy and so much grace to engage with people right now, right? Especially over such ludicrous things.
Right.
So I totally get that, especially when you're face to face with your community. You're like, this is you're at a breaking point basically, where it's like, and you're done.
Like, how do you exist in a community that believes that they're doing okay and they're doing fine?
That this is enough.
That this is enough. That that we hire black and brown folks to be our faces, but we don't actually acknowledge and or honor their art in a way that helps them. Or we.
So their idea of diversity is not even fully acknowledging,
like not fully acknowledging that they are also that they also have a job to do. First of all, as white artists, you also have a job to do, and it's not to just book black and brown folks and put them on stage to therefore that's what it will invite other brown folks to come to your stage, right? No, you actually have to do the work and actually show that you are part of this and not have one brown person on your team and call that good.
Right.
You also have to there's also multi layers to this. Are the brown people on your team white passing? Because that's another thing, because you have to show people are gonna look and be like, oh, it's a bunch of white people, and move on.
And then there's that whole, are you brown enough? Right. When you're like, what?
Yeah. And so
I've had a friend explode on that.
Yeah. There's also that so there's the white passing folks, and then there's this, and then there's this, and and what can we all do to be part of that conversation? If you don't want to have the conversation, there's a large issue right there. And also, how are you engaging with other people in your community? Because if you're culturally, we're all different, right? You and I are culturally different, and the way you might attack an issue might be different than the way I attack an issue, because we have our cultural differences. And for you to say that my way is wrong, you know what I mean? That's the conversation you and I need to have, where it's
right.
oh, well, in my culture, we would just yell at the person, and,
right.
not necessarily, but in this example, I would yell at the person, and that's just the way and you're well, I would have a private conversation and sit down with them, and, very pleasant and whatever, and we would see that there's a difference there. What's the solution, and why, how do we go about it together?
So would you say that the Pacific Northwest as a whole is uninterested in having that conversation?
Not as a whole, definitely not as a whole.
No.
But I do think there's a large problem is the attitude of let's sweep this under the rug. It's not a problem. Let's all be happy and harmony together. I think a large problem with spoken word and art, in art, mostly spoken word because that's what I know, is that we talk about these issues in our poems. And just talking about them in our poems doesn't make them real. Doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make it different, right? I can talk about gentrification in my poem. That doesn't mean if I go outside, everything's perfect and happy. I have to actively go out and see what the problem is and try to find my ways of changing it.
Which is why I thought last night you presenting your poem was a wonderful introduction to this issue.
Right.
And then you were done and you stepped off and someone else started talking. And that conversation was the one that I was interested in witnessing last night.
Yeah.
Not engaging in because this is not my town.
Right.
But I want to hear these conversations.
Yeah, not.
And everyone was...
And smiley, and everybody was smiling and nodding, and that was art, yay! And it's when we talk about problems, it's because they're actually affecting us,
right?
Not because you are trying to make some beautiful piece of art, because sometimes art is not beautiful. It doesn't necessarily have to be beautiful,
I tell that to my kids all the time, because they would say, I'm not an artist.
This is not pretty.
This isn't pretty. And I was like, oh my God,
yeah.
To me, it's much more interesting if it's not.
Right, much more, because there's much more to analyze and see, the colors you use or the words that you use.
I want to see your mistakes or your experiences or your journey through
what affected you.
Your art.
Yeah, and so, it's not always going to be beautiful, and our conversations are not not always going to be beautiful. Had that woman never left in the middle of the conversation, maybe we could have had a conversation and we could have still went separate ways believing differently about each other, and that would have been fine. But at least there was something that happened between us, right? Like, at least she was able to touch something that I was feeling, but that didn't happen, and it was fine. But, yeah. But I think at spoken word artists we see that a lot, is because we get up there and we say a lot of things about our feelings or like really heavy political
We sort
topics.
of just like put it all out there.
Right. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we put it all out there, and and people then have this sort of like connection to us because they feel
like they know you.
Yeah, they feel like they know you, so
Because
they feel like they can say anything to you when they come.
Does that happen a lot?
Oh yeah. And
Well, I won't lie. After you performed last night, I was like, I
We're
want to be your
friends.
friend. Like, only because I was like, this is incredible. Thank you.
And that's absolutely fine. Like the way you came up to me and we were talking and whatever, and that was great. But like there is a certain level of people
I
who will
also
touch
came
you.
over and asked if I could chat with you later.
Right.
Like, I didn't want to
You like set it
jump
up.
in your space,
Right.
attack you at that moment. I was like,
Right.
I'd love to chat with you later.
And I have
Thank you for your
and
work.
Are you sure?
No, yeah, this is
Okay.
You're my guest.
Oh, I really I don't know. You're an artist too.
Yeah.
I was just trying to help.
We can look out for each other. Someone else will take care of me. Nothing.
Pay it forward. But yeah, so I just feel like people have this weird sort of like connection to you, and like even at the slam, like we have a part of our speech is like, you have a right to enjoy what you heard. You have a right to tell the poet that you enjoy what they said, but you do not have the right to go touch them afterwards, like and
That's a
hug
thing.
them. Yeah, that's a thing. Like, because we talk about our rape experiences, survivor experiences, and like all of these things, and like people who also have had that experience or have trouble grasping like how serious that was, or like had these like emotional feelings about it, will then come up to you and be like, oh my god, and then hug you with no like consent whatsoever. And so we have to say to people, like, ask the poet if you can hug them, or just don't do it. Like, just don't do it.
Which is
at all.
great that art makes people feel that
Right.
moved
That's right.
to
Do that, right? Sure.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
But respect the space.
Right. Respect the space. Respect like the person. Like, it's like, here's the other thing is that with the interesting thing about performance art is that you also are the art. Right. Like you don't get to stand back and watch everybody enjoy it. Like you are the art also.
Well, and at no point do you disengage. You can't walk away from your painting. Like
you are part of it, and that's it. Yeah. Like, so I just feel like that people are like, oh, well, now I can fondle you and touch you, and you amaze me, and oh my goodness, like it's this weird relationship that you have with folks, and it's like, oh, but I'm also a human. Just, I don't know if you remember.
just to remind you.
Just forgot about that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Is that really vulnerable?
Oh yeah, like a lot of I think like a lot of my pieces, especially like within the past few months, have been like really talking about my identities and myself, and to put that out there and then have somebody come and talk to me about it. It was like, actually, that's why I wrote it. I don't really want to talk to you, like
It's not a conversation I want to have.
Like we can have the conversation maybe later, but I'm like in my feelings right now, so.
Yeah, Jesus. That's so fair. I think that's really an important thing to drive home.
Yeah, because like I feel like you go to a museum and you see a work of art that touches you, it makes you feel a certain way. You don't get to tell the artist that that's the way they made you feel. Mm-hmm. And so like at a poetry event, or at wherever it is that we're performing poetry, like folks get to do that. And so like there's this interesting relationship that happens, and so it's just kind of like,
Thank you.
I don't really want to touch you because I just talked about rape, and so I don't really want to touch you,
Right. Like the performance is over for them.
Right.
But like those
It's not
words
for
are
you,
still
yeah.
on your lips.
Right, exactly. And like, I often like when I coach poets and stuff, I'm like, you have to be present in this moment. Like every time you get on stage and do a poem, especially if it's about something like tough or from the heart or whatever, like be present with that piece, find out why you wrote it, find out who needs to hear it,
right,
and then perform
do
it from
it
that.
justice.
Yeah, like
right.
do it justice and actually do it. And then you walk away feeling right back to where when you wrote that poem, like what those feelings are, like start to come back up. You're still emotional. You still have to take your minute or whatever it is that you have to do, and then to have to deal with the public is
Right.
probably the hardest part.
Jeez, yeah. Because honestly, people like see something, and however it makes them feel, they're just probably so excited that someone was
Somebody also felt that.
and then they shared it, that they just want to connect to that,
Right.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
But those boundaries are so necessary.
Yeah.
So do you find that people will often say like, "Oh my God, you're so brave"?
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because this whole project for me, which is like not art, and it's more like a look at art.
A little bit more okay.
A lot of risk has sort of gone into working 3 jobs to make enough money to support myself
To
on
do
the
art.
road.
Yeah.
To do this thing that I
Yeah.
care so much about.
Yeah.
That people are like, "Oh my God, you're so brave." And it's like the last thing I feel is brave. It might
it's
look
the-
like
yeah.
bravery to you.
Yeah.
But it's
it
not how I
doesn't
feel.
feel-
So how does that?
When people tell me I'm brave,
Or as an artist, are you like, no, this is just who I am? Like,
like it's kind of like this is what I do,
Right.
For my own healing, like when all of this happened to me or whatever it is, like this is how I healed, was like figuring out what it is, let me give you an example. As one of the poems that I read for something had to do with, so I identify as trans, and I didn't always, like I'm pretty late in the coming out game, like I've always been like a, butch lesbian for most of my life, and so it was a letter to my butch self from my current self, like to say, like a breakup note. It was like, like you were there for me, and I get that, that's cool, but here's where I am now, and you were like, basically the whole poem is like, you were built out of survival, like I didn't know that I could be this person. And so, like, you were created, and now I'm trying to say goodbye. Eventually, I will, and like that sort of thing, right? And you're getting emotional. It's okay.
okay, this is me all the time. I'm like such a soft touch.
You're all good.
Yeah, I'm cool. Ignore this.
So like it was a breakup poem, and people talk about me being brave in that sense, and it was just like, no, but that's how I dealt with that. Is that I had to separate myself from this past self of myself, this current place of myself, and how do I get to that? How do I go to my acceptance of myself? So it's my process, basically. Like some people, I don't know, play a sport, I guess. Or
That was like the best.
I don't know, people have dogs or something, like I don't know. People have a process.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's the people that don't have a process that look at someone else's process and say, God, not only is that brave, quote unquote, but like I wish that I had a process. Maybe they don't know who they are.
Right.
Maybe they've never done that work. And some people, it feels like, are required to do so much more work than others.
Right.
To find all those answers, because we live in a society in which we're taught this or that.
To not talk about it. Like, yeah,
Right.
You are who you are, and when you change that, just do it. Don't talk about it, and that's it. Yeah.
God, what a great first interview. God, it was so fun chatting with you.
Thank you. This was actually really cool.
Cool. I'm glad.
Yeah.
It was really cool for me. I'm glad we started with the art.
The art
artist.
salon.
The art salon.
The art salon.
What's that, James Lipton?
James Lipton.
The Inside the Actors Studio? Where it's like, if you could give a piece of advice to a group of people, or what's your favorite?
Oh my god.
I don't know, do you want to say any wise shit?
Do I have any wise shit? I think that one of the ways in which we make affordable art space happen is that, from my experience, I'm going to give you a short story really quick. Sorry.
I know, I'm all about
So,
the anecdotes.
Seattle Poetry Slam moved to the sort of border of South Lake Union, downtown, and Capitol Hill, and the edge of Capitol Hill, all of which are under like crazy change, right? And we've been there for about 5 years. Seattle Poetry Slam is the longest running weekly show in Seattle. We've been around for 20 plus years. right? So we've moved space to space because of things like the neighborhood is changing. We were like, and this is before I was even around. We were at a place called the Sit and Spin, which was a laundromat / bar that then the venue got torn down or whatever it was. Then we moved to the Mirabeau Room, which is in Queen Anne, and then we moved to a place called Toast in Fremont. All of these places, if you go to the neighborhoods in which those places were, are not the same place that they were, and are very, trendy. Let's hang out here, bro. Like, let's do the PBR and the whatever, the microbrews, whatever, right? So these are all those places. And then we found a home at Rebar. It was a very queer space. It was a very happening space. Everybody went there. It was a thing. So we got a lot of foot traffic, as well as people who were club goers there. They were like, oh, what happens here on Tuesday? Let me find out. So we got a lot of that. So then Facebook moved to the towers across the street. So they have offices across the street from us. Then the Hilton Garden Inn, which is a very fancy hotel, built a large, massive building, sort of kitty corner. And then there is a residential condo that broke down the parking lot. There was a massive parking lot right next to Rebar for the club goers. And that got taken down, and it's going to be a tower for condos. Obviously, luxury condos that's going up. It's still under construction. You would think that would bring more people in, because these are younger people that are, the happening, whatever people, right? This has made our audience, almost close to just, we're basically, sometimes we're sitting there looking at each other, and it's just the artist there. And, to have a poetry slam, you have to have judges that have never been to a poetry slam before, and so, that gets hard. And, getting people in the door is hard, and, getting folks...
For you, did you get your receipt?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so our audience is our attendance is so low constantly, and we're trying to, we're still in the process of trying to find new marketing campaigns and whatever, but to make art space, affordable art space happen, to make art spaces happen, is that we have to value art as necessity. That is absolutely it. And to not value spoken word and slam as a necessity in the world, to speak out against, to revolutionize, to whatever it is, to make change happen, we are not regarding it as necessity. And so that's why we don't have people watching it.
This is your take on
that's my
Okay, so the reason my hand is all over my face is because you're blowing my mind. So the entire, and I'm not sure if I ever even mentioned this, but the end goal of this whole research project that I'm doing this year, of trying to gather as many resources or tools as possible to learn how art heals, is to establish a program that's similar in how American Red Cross works, right? When there's a natural disaster, they go because it's necessary to provide shelter and food and blankets and water. And I'm very much of the mindset that art is just as essential, and there is no reason that we shouldn't be providing those resources as well.
That's fantastic.
So the fact that you just said that back to me without me having shared that last night.
Yeah. But it's true. It's very, very true.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times has art saved your life?
Right. Exactly. It's why I still do it.
Yes. And so many times I'm no, I don't think you understand. I'm a product.
Right.
Of this.
Of art. Yeah. Of whatever art that I do. That is it.
A fully functioning human.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Most artists are not.
Stable-ish.
Right.
Because
of art.
Of the art.
Yeah. How many times?
People get that. I think there's a huge chunk of us.
Yeah.
That get it.
Yeah.
So this research is sort of trying to get people on board with that.
Think about all the stages in your life. I was, when I was in vocational school and not really understanding what the hell was happening, and all of those things. I was on a Navy ship. I was on an aircraft carrier, for God's sakes. Basically a city on the sea, and my only outlet was pen and paper or my computer or whatever it was, just to get that, just to have those experiences to save my life. Otherwise, I would not still be standing here talking to you right now. And
it is that.
Yeah.
It's that severe.
It's that severe. Every Tuesday night, I go to the slam because it saves my life. There's at least, I can guarantee you there will be one poem that will make me want to continue living. every single Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's my own poem and the way I performed it saved my life. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Or, oh, I didn't know I could improve in that way. Or, oh, I learned something. Or that poet that doesn't know they're a poet, that is standing there shaking and talking about something really serious and like tears streaming down their eyes or whatever have you, or is like, this is my first time here, and everybody cheers, and and then they're like, well, I'm gonna come back. That was awesome.
That transformation is huge.
Yeah, like to say I'm going to come back because that felt good. Most people in this world have trouble with public speaking. And for you to get up in front of like, okay, lately it's been like 10 or 15 people and not like 25 to 30 people, but 10 or 15 people that you don't know and talk about something like, talk about domestic violence, talk about your experience with your father, or talk about your inexperience with your father for that matter. Like to talk about stuff like that on a stage in public, and then for you to say, I want to do this again, saves my life every time.
And I feel like for so many people, especially artists, that it's easy for us to say like, oh my gosh, you're so clearly an artist.
Right.
It's so easy for them to say I'm not.
Right.
I'm not this.
I don't usually
There's like
do
a
this.
title disassociation, and that was so me. I wasn't gonna finish my degree. My family lost 4 people in 4 years.
Wow.
So it got to the point where I was just backed up on grief, and there was no way that I was moving forward in any way.
Right.
And it wasn't until my advisor was like, well, what can you do?
Right.
And I said, well, in the back of my head, there's this whole play that's like autobiographical content. It's a family drama. But I'm not a playwright. But I don't know how to write a play. But I've never taken a class to learn to
write a
train
play.
how to do that.
Yeah.
So I can't do that.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, cool, so you're gonna write a play.
So that's your next step. Okay,
Right.
cool.
So, goodbye. Yeah.
Right.
He thought he was gonna get a 30-page one act. I gave him 126, 2 full act play.
Wow.
And that was my case study on art as therapy, but specifically playwriting as grief therapy. So,
Holy crap.
no, but I think for everyone it can be just that powerful if they...
I think that like oftentimes when like I do, when I work with young people, when I work with, let me stop playing, with adults too, like all they need is permission. All you need is permission. Like one person that it's actually one of my great friends now, like, he was very much like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do with my hands? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you think you should do?
just exist.
Right? Like,
Just-
what do you think you should do? Tell me, what would it sound like if you said those words out loud and we were having conversations? What would you do with your hands? Or how could you accentuate that? And it's never, do this. It's like, no, what would you do to tell me that, the rain is coming down, or, what have you? It's like, just the permission. It's like, you can do what you think is right. So I just think it's
And
like
that
a
being
matter of...
authentic is okay.
Yeah.
Especially like after seeing last night, where all of these like art forms are so, we have very specific ideas of what it should be, and that word I struggle with all the time, and I try not to use, but
Should, yeah. Like,
I think especially artists are like, well, what is this trying to be? What is this supposed to be? And it's like, no,
Right.
just do it.
Just do it.
Just exist.
And like I think that another like permission is NaNoWriMo. Do you do NaNoWriMo? It's National Novel Writing Month, which was November.
Oh, I do know that.
Yeah,
I have a bunch of friends at home, and their organization is called Poetry Solves Problems.
Oh, cool.
So they do like National Writing Month. We have like evenings, like once a month or quarter or anything, where it's like artists will come out and just
hang out, yeah.
share.
And that's the kind of thing where it's like you're being given this permission, like with NaPoWriMo, which is in April, I think I want to say.
Yeah.
It's like, here's permission to write one poem. Doesn't matter what. If it's a haiku, it's a haiku. If it's whatever, and that's your permission to just do whatever. And most of the time, from what I've seen, are people who are not like professional poets that complete this thing and are like, I want to keep going. I'm going to do 365. Like, those are the folks that were like, oh, all I needed was somebody to tell me I could do this.
Right.
So, and then like me, I'm like, oh, I'm at 13. I don't know. I'll finish it sometime. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And just making people aware of the resources, and that you don't need resources, right? That you can exist and create and be an artist without tools.
Yeah, like give a young person, like, and I'm talking about young person like kindergarten age, a bunch of paint and a piece of paper, and just like, and watch what happens. Like, here, you can use this,
Right.
and then it's amazing. No matter what.
For me, it's so, yeah, and it's funny because I've read a lot of things in which art and creativity and color and expression is associated with young ages.
Yeah.
Because they have no inhibitions and they have no boundaries or rules. I mean, if they do, they don't care.
Yeah.
I will color outside of this line. And as you get older, you don't even pick up the tools to create.
And I think that another interesting thing that I actually learned from my mentor, Tara Hardy, is that she had a writing institute, and it was the only one of its kind. It was a queer writing institute. So it was queer folks and their allies, and that's what we did, was we wrote. Every day was a different type of writing, like there was performance poetry and creative writing and memoir writing and all of these things, right? But the whole basis on the teaching aspect of it, because I eventually became a volunteer teacher, was that marginalized communities don't often hear positive feedback. And so, and in my opinion, that's what keeps us from wanting those titles. It's like, if I call myself a poet, you're going to judge me like I was a poet, and that therefore this doesn't measure up, right? And so we all used positive feedback. There was never, like, I didn't like this, or, like, you often never heard, all you ever heard was, I liked this line, this is how this line made me feel, this was really awesome. And so, like, queer folks, women, brown folks, like, we don't often hear that we're awesome. And to hear that from your work at all times is, like, makes you want to change. Like, so if you didn't hear that this line was good, maybe you will go into it and rediscover, like, oh, well, maybe I can change that up. And then bring that back to the group, and the group would be like, yeah, I really liked what you did there. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like that's another part, is that we don't often hear, we always hear the criticisms, we don't hear the positive, like, unless you're like, for instance, I performed yesterday, so of course, yeah, oh, that was so great, and of course I heard the negative feedback and whatever, but like, I heard the great things, like when we're in the process of, or if we announce that we're unsure of ourselves, we're gonna hear criticism, and that seems to be part of the culture, which is stupid, but
I think you're awesome.
I had a great time, by the way.
Oh,
thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, this is great.
Super cool. Do you want to give all of your Facebook or website
stuff,
or however people can follow or track you?
Facebook.com/Ella Barton Poetry with one L, so ELABARTON Poetry. I am at ELAVADER, that's Elevator, on Instagram and on Twitter.
Okay.
And
Elevator.
And Seattle Poetry Slam is every Tuesday night at Rebar, 1114 Howell Street. Starts at 8 p.m. and it's only $5. Only $5.
This might be a silly question, but are there any like videos or ways in which people could watch you if they're not in Seattle?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you go to YouTube and just put Ella Barton Poetry, a couple of my videos show up. I think a lot of them are from a feature I did with the Vancouver Poetry Slam in British Columbia. One of the more popular ones is through a video publisher called Button Poetry that goes to all the national competitions, and they video all this stuff, and they feature particular poems. So one of my poems is on there called Arizona. Yeah, Button.
I might know those guys.
I think you do.
They're in LA, right?
Oh, are they?
They were in Minnesota.
Minnesota, probably.
They were, right? They're
Yeah.
based. Okay, I know those guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
Button Poetry's awesome.
Okay, I'll link it all up.
Yeah, link it all up. Button Poetry, and find me on the book.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
This is awesome.
Yeah, this was really great.
Okay, guys, that was the first episode of Brunch with Strangers. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the RSS feed so you can find out about new episodes. Check the blog for updates on the trip, photo updates, video blogging. The website is www.polkadotsandpicometers.com. That's picometers with a P. You can sound it out like picometers. I'm also on Instagram at JoniJoniBaloney. Like it sounds, not like it's actually spelled. Hit me up if you have any questions, comments, whatever, and let's keep this conversation going.